Ian, my friend, how's it going? Come on, listen, I know we said we'd do the podcast this week, but I thought, because it's summertime, I thought we'd relax in these hammocks. I have some iced tea. I realise that's an American thing. I'm trying iced tea. It's not bad. It could be a bit warmer. Come and join me.
Yeah. That sounds good, actually. Yeah, let's just relax out in the garden. There's nothing really happening in the world of board games this week anyway.
It's summertime.
So, yeah.
Why would anything happen during summer? And board games, I mean, the kids are on holiday. We're chilling out and nothing bad.
Jamie, I think the alarms are going off. I'm pretty sure that's the alarm. I'm sure that's the news alarm.
I'm going to go warm up this tea. Save my seat.
I will do. Let's get to the studio. It's one of those weeks again. Oh, it really is one of those weeks. I'm Ian McAllister.
And I'm Jamie Adams. And this is Brainwaves episode 76, bringing you the best in board game and tabletop gaming news. These are the headlines for the week of the 28th of June, 2021. TSR is back again, but please don't tell a friend. Kickstarter community gets deadly, and coming this summer, find our Knizia and the Grail game. All this and more on this episode of Brainwaves.
Yes, indeed, TSR is back. Tactical Studies Rules, better known as TSR, was the original publisher of Dungeons & Dragons and founded in 1963 by Gary Gygax and Don Kay. The company was eventually bought in the late 90s by Wizards of the Coast, who went on to revive Dungeons & Dragons, and the rest, as they say, is history. The TSR trademark expired in 2004. And now it's back. Kind of. Twice. The trademark was acquired in 2011 to publish Gygax magazine, but that was cancelled due to a trademark dispute between Gygax's sons, who are involved with the project, and Gail Gygax, Gary's wife. That company does still operate under the TSR Games name, producing the Top Secret RPG. Well, now TSR itself is back, not TSR Games, don't get the two confused now, and has Ernest Gary Gygax Jr. on board. Their first project will be an RPG called Giant Lands, which was originally kickstarted in 2019 by Stephen E. Deinhardt IV. So, to sum up, there are now two TSR companies. One at tsrgames.com that was involved with magazine publication and the game Top Secret. One at tsr.games that is publishing Giant Lands. And Ernie Gygax was involved in the creation of both companies just to really confuse matters. TSR has also just announced that they'll be rebooting Star Frontiers, one of the games made by the original TSR back in the 1980s.
Just to clarify, Ian, which TSR is this? Is this the new TSR, not TSR Games?
It's the new TSR.
Cool. And then...
So, a tweet from the TSR Games Twitter account went out recently. If you don't like Gary Gygax, you probably shouldn't play Dungeons & Dragons, but we hear Milton Bradley was a really good guy. You might like his Vice versus Virtue games. Okay then. This tweet was preceded by a tweet from TSR Games, which said, "We are intolerant of hatred of any kind from all sides. All players are welcome at our table. Thanks to the role-playing game, we have a deep commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Unless we don't think you're the right kind of person who might enjoy playing at our table." Oh my goodness!
Now, there's a full interview with Ernest Gygax that we'll link to, and we've read some of the transcript that's been kindly provided by EN World. Thank you very much to the folks over there who have watched the video and transcribed this for us. It makes for some interesting reading. The interview is part of a series called Life in the Bunker, and on collaborating with Wizards of the Coast, Ernest Gygax said this: "I would hope so, but they just put out a big disclaimer recently trying to divorce themselves from the ethics and style of play that was involved in the origins of the game," referring to Dungeons & Dragons. "They're basically trying to say, we are a better company and a better type of person than those who started playing. At least that's somewhat of the impression they've given, and please switch over and be part of the new wave. You know, join the pack of lemmings. Oh yeah."
So I'm not going to get too much started on how D&D grew out of chainmail, which grew out of war games, which grew out of Civil War reenactments and war games, and that whole... I'm fine, Ian. No, honestly, I'm fine. Sorry, everybody, I'm fine. Honestly, I'm fine. I'm not fine, but I'm fine.
So from the same interview on TSR itself, TSR has been gone. There's a ton of artists and game designers and people that play, and recently they were dissed for being old-fashioned, possibly anti-modern trends, and enforcing or even having the concepts of gender identity. Laughs. But wait, there's more. At 6:20 p.m. BST, and we are recording just after 9 p.m. BST on Friday the 25th of June, Luke Gygax, one of Gary's other children, posted this on Twitter. FYI, I am not involved with any TSR company, nor is Gary Con, nor anyone else in my family outside of Ernie. Full stop. That is all. Now, Gary Con is an annual celebration of Gary Gygax and his influence on the hobby.
Now, Gary Gygax's influence on the hobby cannot be... yes, it was huge. Role-playing games, they wouldn't exist in the they wouldn't exist in their current state without the form without Gary Gygax. However, you can do a cursory search online and look at some of the statements that Gary Gygax has said regarding to his opinions on role-playing, and I thank Lucifer that we have changed. Okay, we have changed as a community, as a thing, and people who just say, "Oh, you're not sticking to old school role playing." This is.
We would thoroughly recommend the recent MPI, no pun included, review of Sleeping Gods, where EFCA does a very good breakdown of the origins of sort of story-focused games, including some things like Dungeons and Dragons, and the problematic people involved with the original creation of those games, including Gary Gygax himself. We'll link to that in the show notes. It's an extremely good video, and no pun included are doing some of the best critical work in the hobby right now. So please do go and check that out.
Shout out to Elaine and Efka, because you are amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just fantastic work. So this has been an astonishing story to watch, because a few days ago, TSR announced that they were back. And it's like, okay, maybe that's a good thing. And then over the last few days, we've watched them set their company on fire before it even begins.
This is a farce.
It's been astonishing.
This has been an utter farce.
Yeah, it's like watching something out of the thick of it. It's been absolutely astonishing.
No, the thick of it would be funny.
The other thing is, like, okay, so if you want to make OSR product, old school OSR, by the way, folks, refers to old school role playing. So it tends to be games that hark back to the early days of D&D, and they have a particular sensibility. But what you generally get in OSR games is people who have a fondness for those games and have nostalgia for those games, looking at those games, maybe slightly through rose-tinted spectacles, but also like they're writing games that are the way they played the games, not necessarily the way those games were originally written. And there's some cool, innovative stuff in that community. There's some really interesting things in there, and I do encourage you to go and have a look at it. But if you just want to put out Dungeons and Dragons products, there's nothing stopping you. The DMs Guild exists. You could form a little company and go and do that stuff. You don't need all this bluster and sound and fury and giving weird interviews that make you sound kind of unhinged. And just strangeness. You could just go and do that. That's fine.
But Ernie Gygax's opinions on 5th edition D&D, which I can't find all of a sudden, which is really annoying.
I mean, his implication in that interview, I've read a little bit more of the transcript, is basically like, oh, 5th edition isn't the true Dungeons and Dragons. Come and play our games. They'll be much more hardcore, or words to that effect.
Sorry, Ian.
That is effectively it.
Sorry, Ian. I want to. Yeah, that. I can't remember where it was. What was it he said about like drinking light beer?
He said something along the lines of, like 5th edition is like drinking a light beer, and I want a Guinness, or something like that.
Yeah, 5th edition to me. See, this is what he said. 5th edition to me is like drinking light beer when you could be having a Guinness. It's still cold, has calories, some. Okay. No, I'm fine. I
mean, there's so many things wrong with that analogy that I don't quite know where to start. Jamie is currently eating a book. So, I mean, so basically this story, this is someone setting the fire to their own company before it begins.
Check your damn privilege. I've only played a bit of 1st ed and 2nd ed AD&D. Now, admittedly, at that time, Gary Gygax had left, and it was TSR was actually in the domain of Lorraine Williamson, and that's a whole story. But there was some restrictions that were still hanging around. Certain classes could only go to certain levels. For example, humans could do any level, but elves could do like unlimited and like fighter and bard and a couple of others. But that wasn't very much. Halflings could only go to like level 8 or 11 in fighter. For goodness sake, I am glad that we have moved on from this and are able to have unlimited. You want to do a halfling wizard? Fine, they can do whatever level they like. Please, for goodness sake. And if you have any issues with this, please direct them to me personally, because I am more than happy to talk to you about this. Leave Ian out of this. I'm sorry, Ian, it's going to have to edit this as a rant, but you know what? I am sick of this.
Anyway, Jamie, moving on to Kickstarter Death threats for a nice, relaxing piece of news.
A little palate cleanser, right. So if you're a regular listener to Brainwaves, and if you're not, welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm sorry for the rant. It isn't every time. It's just been the last 2 casts. I hope things will be less anger-provoking from me, but I can't make any promises. Anyway, usually on Brainwaves, we spend a lot of time covering Kickstarter, its response to, for example, the formation of a union, its internal struggles, and the like. Now, it seems the company is drawing ire once again, and not for its corporate structure this time, but indeed the way that it allows content creators to manage comments on their pages. Stronghold Games ran into some issues with the latest Kickstarter for Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. In response to those issues, they have received some death threats through the Kickstarter platform. It is our understanding that at this time, it is easier to chase someone for their pledge than it is to ban them from your project or block them from commenting. Now, talking about the pledge manager, we understand the individual who issued those death threats also filled out the pledge manager for the project. That pledge manager includes your address, details on it, so they can send the police to your house should they need to. We reached out to Kickstarter for comment and got the following statement in reply. Kickstarter has zero tolerance for any racist, bigoted, or abusive comments on our platform, period. Every comment that's flagged for our review is manually reviewed by our trust and safety team, and if the comment is found to be in violation of our community guidelines, we take further action, including deletion or restriction of commenting privileges. Our dedicated trust and safety team is always watching over the platform and reviewing project submissions and reports from creators and backers to enforce our rules and review reports of offensive material. We rely on our community to help us make sure our platform is safe, trusted, and effective for creators and backers alike. This is an ever-evolving process, and one that we are committed to getting right. This is why we conduct regular reviews of our policies and have multiple layers of confirmation to ensure our rules are consistently and fairly applied. We're also actively investigating new ways in which we can improve or expand on our existing processes around comment moderation.
Now, I should be clear, it was myself that reached out to Kickstarter, and I just alluded to having seen death threats that I've seen on Twitter to the Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition Kickstarter. So I wasn't specific about it, so the fact that we got a fairly boilerplate kind of response shouldn't necessarily be taken as a bad thing, because my question was fairly vague as well. But this is never okay. I can't believe I have to say. Sorry, I'm gonna keep myself calm, but I can't believe I have to say this. I can't believe I have to say this to people. Death threats. Sorry, I'm gonna lose that laughter from my voice. Death threats are not okay. I mean,
oh my.
I mean, it's a board game that you're not getting on time. I mean, I believe that the Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition Kickstarter has had some issues with some of the product getting to, I think, Target stores before backers. And I can understand that being frustrating and annoying for backers. I absolutely sympathize with them. Death threats are not the way. I've been in retail for a very, very long time. And you know what I do with people that get shouty and angry with me? I ask them to leave my shop, or I leave the store, or if I was part of a bigger company at the time, I would put them onto customer services, and that's wasting their time, not mine, because I don't want to deal with you. If you just get shouty and angry, the person behind the till or the person at the other end of the phone or whatever has much more power over you than you imagine.
What are you going to do? Those death threats, you're going to threaten to kill someone. What do you think that's going to accomplish? Do you really think that's going to end up well? Do you think that's going to turn out well for you?
Especially in this situation where you have definitely logged into a pledge manager and definitely given your address to the people concerned. That's very, very stupid.
Solid gold play there, champ. Solid gold play. You have... Oh, brilliant. I'm so sorry, everyone. I don't know why I'm so angry tonight. Ian, quick question. So Kickstarter is seeing somewhat of a competitor in a couple of other sites that, Kickstarter has generally outpaced some other ones like Indiegogo, but now we're seeing a company like GameFound, specifically set up for board game Kickstarters, and that has content moderation built into it. Do we think there's going to be more of a shift, maybe?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we're already seeing like big companies like Portal going to GameFound for the new versions of Robinson Crusoe. So, yeah, I honestly think something's going to happen there, yeah. I think it'll take a little bit more for GameFound to become a real thing. Like, maybe if they get a couple of CMON projects, for instance, that could be a massive thing. And we're slowly seeing a drift towards GameFound. So, yeah. I don't know if Kickstarter's in trouble yet, but there's definitely some things coming.
I agree. I don't think Kickstarter is in trouble yet. I'd say if the larger companies begin to move towards GameFound, I think that might cause more of a shift. But it's almost the Google issue, which is I'll Google something, well, I'll Kickstart it. It implies that you're going to Kickstarter. Now, moving on from death threats, thankfully, Iain, I believe a heavyweight in the board game industry is having some issues.
Yes, indeed. Back a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the cancellation of several well-loved Eurogames from a variety of companies. One of those companies was called Grail Games. They cancelled Yellow and Yangtze, Medici the card game, Stevenson Rocket, among others, all designed by Reiner Knizia. At the time, they stated the reason for doing so was financial. Well, the plot thickens a little. On June the 22nd, Reiner Knizia put out a tweet that said the following. To clarify some misleading communication from Grail Games, my games leave Grail Games because I terminated licenses for breach of contract. We've sent a request for comment to Grail Games, but are yet to hear back. And I reached out on Twitter to Reiner Knizia, and he was gracious enough to reply to me to get in touch to his website, which I have subsequently done. I did that only today, Friday the 25th of June, on the day of recording. So we haven't heard back yet from Reiner Knizia, but if we do before I hit the edit in a couple of days' time, I'll drop something into the cast, or it might come out on the next cast. The board game hobby is small. Information like this will get out. So, yeah, don't lie, guys. If something's happened, if a contract's been breached, if you've lost games because of something else, don't say it's because of another thing, because this kind of information will definitely get out. It's a bad look.
It's not going to end well for you. It's
not
going to end well. And moving on from that, all that, to the news.
Jamie, we lost a legend.
I'm afraid we have. It's my sad duty to report that Andrew Hackard, line editor for the phenomenon that is Munchkin, for the last 12 years, passed away on June the 17th from brain cancer. As well as being line editor for Munchkin, Hackard was also a freelance editor, working on some books written by Will Wheaton. As line editor for Munchkin, much of his work is still out there, with more on the way. Tributes to Andrew have been widespread, especially from those who worked with him closely. John Kovalik, the primary artist for the Munchkin series, said, "As the Munchkin Tsar, Andrew has been my colleague for more than a decade, and became a great cherished friend with an unmatched wit. His work brought enormous joy to literally millions. There is no filling a loss like this. The thoughts of everyone at Brainwaves are with Andrew's family and friends at this difficult and sad time."
Yeah, indeed. I'll reflect that sentiment. I mean, I'm no fan of Munchkin. I've said that before on this cast, but it's hard to deny its influence on the hobby, how widespread it is. You can see it in all sorts of shops. It's a gateway for some people into the larger hobby. I cannot deny its influence at all. And it sounds like Andrew Hackard, who I didn't know before this piece, was responsible for a lot of that. So a very sad loss for the community.
Man, it's the driving force behind, this great series of games that, as John Kovalik said, brought joy to literally millions. And whatever one's opinion on it, you can't deny with those figures. That's amazing. And
yeah.
He leaves the world having made it a better place in his own way, and that is truly commendable.
Indeed.
Unfortunately, Ian, the world has a backlog.
Yes, it does. As our listeners will no doubt be aware, times are tough in the world of international shipping. COVID has had an impact around the world, and even now ports all across the globe are having to shut partially or otherwise due to COVID breakouts. This has a massive impact on shipping times and the availability of goods in general. We reported a few casts ago, of course, on the Ever Given being blocked into the Suez Canal as well, which had a similar impact on international trade. Well, a recent article on NPR detailed some of the woes being faced by those looking to get goods shipped around the globe, interestingly using the example of Dice Miner from Atlas Games as an example. Part of the article interviews John Nephew, founder of Atlas Games, about their troubles. Thinking that the game would take 6 weeks to ship from China on a 40-foot cargo container, it took 6 months. The current situation means that ships can be facing up to 5 days just to get into port, not to mention the time it then takes the cargo to get us onto a truck or a train, which can be up to 10 days, which is a huge amount of time for cargo to just be sitting in port. The article speculates that bottlenecks inside the supply chain like this will lead to an inflation in prices, and this is bound to hit board games as well, which has been brought home very recently to one of our Discord members. Simon, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. The game Streets from Sinister Fish has fallen foul of some of the global shipping problems, and they sent out an email recently to backers asking those in areas affected to pledge an extra £2 if they could. We'd like to make it clear that this was not mandatory from the company. They weren't saying you don't get your games unless you give us money. The money has already been pledged by most backers already. And it was just a request. If you could spare a couple of quid, it would really help out the company. The response from the backers has been very positive, according to Sinister Fish, and will hopefully go some way to relieving the pressure on the company. It's really tough times right now out there, folks. Cargo container prices have gone up massively over the course of the pandemic. There's a huge boost in demand for goods, which has caused massive rise in prices in cargo containers. I work in the bicycle industry, or I work in a little bike shop in Edinburgh, and we're seeing delays on components into next year now because factories are so under pressure in the supply chain, and just getting things across the globe takes a long time. You have to remember that in the global supply chain, things can't whip snap response to stuff. So if a company sells out of something, they can't suddenly just order a bunch more. They'll have to place that order like half a year to maybe 2 years ago in order to get the product, and manufacturing just can't respond that fast. So be very, very kind to Kickstarter publishers who are maybe not totally au fait with international shipping. This is maybe their first Kickstarter, maybe their first board game, and maybe a small company. Please be kind to the small publishers out there that are doing their best to get your games to you. I know you can get angry, I know you can be frustrating, but yeah, please be kind just now, because there's a lot of problems that they could have in no way anticipated when they originally launched their Kickstarters.
Bing bong! This is your regular reminder to please not send death threats to companies affected by the shipping crisis. Thank you. Bing bong!
And please remember to be Bill and Ted to everyone. Be excellent to each other. No, Jamie, talking about being excellent to each other, there's some awards news.
Yes. I'll take off my rage mittens and put on my awards Homburg, dusting it off. It is the Cardboard Edison Awards.
Rage mittens.
I don't know. Rage mittens. I don't know, mate. The Cardboard Edison Awards this year. The winner of the Cardboard Edison Awards, well, the in-person category is joint winners for the first time in the history of the Cardboard Edison Awards. And that goes to Winter by Maria Blasco and Enrique Blasco, and Octopus Scramble by Karl Lange. The first place winner for the online category was Surf's Up by Jason Mowery and Chase Williams. Now, we've covered the Cardboard Edison Awards before, but if you haven't heard it before, I'll read from the company's website. To be eligible for the award, designs must not be publicly available through any retail, secondary, or print-on-demand market, including Kickstarter, before July of that year. Designs may not be licensed to a publisher during the period of the award. Designs must be original works that do not infringe on any intellectual property. Board, card, and dice games are eligible. I think the Cardboard Edison Awards are great.
Absolutely. And there's a local designer, well, now not local, but a guy who's originally designed his game, Dalkeith. One of the games called Distilled.
Oh, yes.
Did very well, and he was part of the local Midlothian board gamers group for a little while, and he did quite well as well.
Yes, it was highly recommended. It was one of the highly recommended category.
Absolutely. And it's a fascinating award, the Cardboard Edison Awards. It gives new designers a chance to showcase their games to established designers and get them basically filtered through that process and get some feedback on them. So yeah, it's a really good thing. I've always followed the Cardboard Edison Awards. They're a really interesting thing.
For this year, 2021, submissions were accepted in 2 tracks: online judging and in-person judging, because, there's still coronavirus rampaging around the world. Designers selected the track they deemed most appropriate for their games, and submissions were judged based on engagement, originality of theme, and originality of mechanics. Now, finalists were also judged on engagement, smoothness of play, and their fitness for the target audience. Well done to Maria and Enrique Blasco. Well done to Carl Langa. Well done to Jason Mowry and Chase Williams. Fantastic. I might have a look and see what some of those games are about, because sounds great. And have a look at some of the finalists. Check out the Cardboard Edison Awards. Might find something you didn't expect.
Indeed.
Now, Ian, the best thing about tired, clapped-out old memes is when someone revitalizes them.
Absolutely. As we all know, the revival of the Heroquest board game is on the way, and the license for that game name has now passed back to Hasbro. As a consequence of this, Chaosium will be bringing its Heroquest line of RPGs to a close on the 15th of July 2021. From the head of licensing at Chaosium, Michael O'Brien, last year we announced the transfer of the Heroquest trademark from Moon Design Publications to Hasbro. As part of that change of ownership, we were able to continue selling our Heroquest RPG products for a time. That period comes to an end next month. These titles will be officially out of print permanently, so if you'd like to make a purchase at chaosium.com or DriveThruRPG, please do so while you can. This has all come about because Moon Design Publications, who hold the license for the trademark, passed from Chaosium to Hasbro in July of 2020. So yeah, do get on those games if you want them, because they're soon to disappear forevermore. Though probably not, because piracy. Anyway, we'd like to give a massive shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much for continuing to support the cast, especially over the last year or so in these troubled times, especially to Shaun Newan, who's our executive producer, part of the Game-a-lot team. We'll link to all of Shaun's bits and pieces in the show notes. You can find multiple ways to support us in on the site, and especially have a wee look at Metallic Dice Games, who are a site that make very nice dice and dice adjacent accessories in the States. They make metal dice. They sent us a sample over of, which are extremely nice. Definitely be able to hurt some players by throwing them at them. And yeah, I do recommend checking us out. The promo code you want is Roll with Brains, all capital letters, all one word, and that'll give you a wee discount and give us a cut of the money as well. We'd just like to say a fond farewell to Ben and Charlotte of the Unlucky Frog, who announced in their last podcast that they would be leaving that particular group of people. Ben's been doing some fantastic stuff with Ashenhold Art. We had him on recently to talk about that, and he is still pursuing that side of the hobby. I think with kids and family and just generally life in general, they've not got time to keep going with the Unlucky Frog. So yeah, it's the right thing for them to step away, and we wish them all the best for the future.
Absolutely. You're wonderful. If you're listening to this, you're wonderful people. We're going to miss you, but we know that you're not gone completely. We'll still have chats.
Yeah, we'll see each other, and we'll definitely play games again together soon. Anyway, Jamie, it is the summertime.
Oh, it's the summertime. As much as summertime means anything in Scotland. And it means listening to summer songs like Summertime. No, not the George Gershwin one. Is that bad? Like, not bad. I mean, is that sad that my mind...
And the living is easy. Etc.
Is it sad that my mind immediately went to that before anything else? Or
maybe it's a great song.
Maybe I'm just... Oh, it is. It's one of my favourite songs. But yeah, it speaks an old man in a young man body. But no, instead I'm referring to DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's song Summertime. But why, Jamie? Why is that in a board game podcast? Well, from WizKids, It's Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Summertime. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince invite you to hang with them at the hot spots in Philly. You will cruise, groove, and unwind across town, trying to vibe with them to prove you're the coolest in the crew. Do you have the energy to keep up with everyone else who has their eyes on the crown? I sound so cool, don't I? That was a product description. No. Yeah, I know.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I know. Players will be playing cards, action, energy, and boost cards to claim spots, which will give you points at the end of the game. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, you know. Low respect to them. But you're wondering, this is the end. Where's Monopoly? And do you know, we almost didn't have any Monopoly this cast. I thought, I don't think we have anything. I searched.
It's okay, dear listeners. I whipped Jamie into shape and forced him to go and find some Monopoly news.
He did, and I brought back a double header. That's right, we have 2 new versions of Monopoly coming out. The first is Monopoly Builder. Now, I know that there's been some stories going about a Dice Tower review of Tom Vassell getting angry at Monopoly Builder. Fair enough. Everyone's got their own opinions on Monopoly. Like I always say, if you enjoy a game, good. I have my own personal opinion on it. Monopoly Builder has the Monopoly mechanics we all know and presumably love, but also spaces and property locations will give you resources that you can put towards building towers and topping it off with a penthouse. Not only does the last player standing win, but also it could also be won by the person who has the most points, which are gained also by building towers and penthouses. Kind of, they're aiming to evoke pseudo Settlers of Catan elements, but
sounds like it.
Like almost all the Monopoly versions that we talk about on the podcast, I haven't played it, so I'm afraid I can't tell you any more about it, other than what I have found from some product descriptions. But that is not all. We also have Monopoly Crooked Cash. This is a version of Monopoly you can't trust. Crooked Cash adds counterfeit money to the Monopoly experience. If you think the money you've been given is phony, you can spend one of your decoder chips and use the provided decoder to scan the money. Yeah. And there's also fake chance cards that will allow you to speed up the game, that will move you to an unclaimed property and allow you to quickly buy it. Because the one thing we were all looking for in Monopoly was counterfeit money.
I mean, I'm not angry. I'm just very disappointed.
I'm not disappointed. I'm just tired now, man.
Well, let's get out of here then. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. If you like what you've listened to, then the best way to help us out, as ever, is to share the podcast and drop us a review and rating on iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're mostly active on Twitter if you want to reach out to us. Our website is giantbrain.co.uk, where you can find all our articles and the podcast itself. You can email us about anything in the cast or any news you'd like to share at giantbrainuk@gmail.com. And you can, of course, always come and join us on our Discord. We've got a great little community going on there. And every Tuesday, the Tuesday after the cast goes out, we have a games night on there. Everyone's welcome. All sorts of games get played. We'd love to see you on there and welcome you into the Giant Brain HQ. Don't go in the basement. There's things down there. People don't come back from the basement. It's bad. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.